Pause. Pause. Take a break. Take a break. Reflect on life. Your moment of greatness starts now.
In this episode, we will learn how to become free from limiting beliefs and emotional trauma. Helping us with this is a psychologist, engineer, and author. He's the creator of the awareness method. Welcome to the show, Mateo. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you, brother Toby. It's good to be here. I'm excited about being on this podcast. I was just saying, I love the color of your shirt. There's such a brightness and excitement and aliveness to it, and that's how I feel right
Oh, that's awesome. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for liking my shirt, and thank you so much for joining me on this episode for a soulful conversation. I already like the way we've been vibing before we started recording. Very friendly, very good. I really appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to learning so much from you already. While preparing for this conversation, I was reading so much about what you've done, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot that you've done, and you've been able to balance, the spiritual world with material world, with career and everything, and that's what I would love to learn from you. So, I'd just like us to go some years back in the past in your life journey, and go to the age of 23 when you became quite successful, but you were not so happy, and that led you to, go on a very radical spiritual search. So can we start from there? Would you like to share this experience with us and what you discovered from your spiritual
now.
search?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, so basically, I found myself at the age of 23 having achieved a lot of the things my parents, society, etc. I grew up in Denmark had taught me is needed to be really happy. The
Mm,
gold standard. I was working out a lot. I had like 8 pack. I had a lot of muscles. I'd worked on achieving my dream physique. I just finished my engineering degree. I lived in a beautiful house in the middle of the city. I was partying a lot. So, anything a 23-year-old really could wish for. I had a pretty successful company at the time, coaching. And at that point, I would imagine, oh, now I'm going to feel this permanent sense of happiness. In my naivety, that's what I imagined. And not only did I not feel that sense of happiness, but I felt a sense of emptiness. It was almost
mm,
like, oh my God, I got all these things that was supposed to make me happy, and something is still missing. And to be honest with you, I really panicked because I didn't know where else to look. It's kind of like going into a candy store and they told you, if you eat these 10 candies, you're going to feel so good. And I ate all the 10 candies they had and I still wasn't happy and I didn't know where else to look. There was nothing else to look for.
mm,
And I was a very rational and skeptical person. I valued science and engineering and the concrete and anything that I could see and understand.
mm.
And I was very skeptical around spirituality. I basically thought it was a bunch of hippies just fantasizing stuff and making up stuff. That was my view of spirituality. But slowly, things started opening up. And my friend and I at the time, we moved to Thailand. And that's where, Thailand has, we were talking about Thailand just before this episode, and it has such a soft energy and the people are so kind. It's called the land of the smiles. And I think there's something about being in a different environment, just being outside your normal environment that changes you, but also the fact that the Thai people were so friendly. I think it softened my heart and my mind and opened me to new possibilities. And that's when this crazy spiritual journey started for me. I was desperate for something, and by grace, I was kind of presented with the right people at the right time, and I just started on the path.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and I would like us to go on that part a little bit, like about your the spiritual journey that you went on. I was reading that you spent over 100 days in total darkness and isolation, and you know some intense spiritual practices. Can you shine some light on that and what you learned from all of those experiences?
Sure, man. Well, I didn't start with those 100 days. I think I would have gone insane if I started with that. But
Yeah.
I started with meditation. That was how I begun. I went to some healing stuff, and I was just kind of testing the marketplace. And there was a lot of strange things. There was a lot of surprising things, like certain psychics being able to describe my parents to me, my life, and all sorts of stuff that I was like, there's no way they could know this. This is not just like guessing stuff and then hoping it sticks. There was very private details. I remember one psychic told me the name of my grandfather who had passed away. There was no way nobody could know that. He's an Iranian guy, no social media, nothing. And those experiences started opening me up. It's like, okay, there is something more. Then I started meditating, and I didn't understand what meditation was. I remember one of my friends said, I heard about the Buddha and he got enlightened, and his technique is just watch the breath. And as an engineer, that made no sense to me at all, that you can sit and watch your breath and anything is going to happen. The whole idea seemed kind of foolish to me.
Yeah.
But we started doing 45 minutes a day, and I got really addicted because we started feeling like relaxed. I could start seeing that, oh my God, my thoughts are not me, my emotions are not me. And I started having some pretty, at the time, deep spiritual experiences. Just simply just realizing that I was not my thoughts. That was crazy to me. That was like a big revelation. And eventually, as I went deeper and deeper, that's when I met my first spiritual teacher. I spent 2.5 years meditating. At the time, I came back to Denmark, and I was meditating minimum 2 hours a day, up to 7 hours a day for 2.5 years. My whole life became immersed in that. And I was experiencing some very deep states of consciousness, which are hard to describe, but very deep states of bliss, of peace, of feeling that this life is kind of an illusion, really experiencing that. And then after that, I moved to a mountain in Spain. I was there, I was living on a mountain with my partner at the time, but most of my time I spent alone for 3.5 years. And that's when I started doing what is called dark retreats. And Christian traditions have used this, mystical Christian traditions have used dark retreats, Tibetan Buddhist traditions use it. It's something many spiritual traditions all around the world have used. And I turned my home, which was built into the mountain, so it was kind of a cave home. I turned that into a dark retreat. I removed all the light. There's a special way you prepare the house so no light comes in. And my first dark retreat was 14 days. That was my test, which already is really, really long for most people. That was my test just to make sure I wouldn't go insane. And and after that, a month later or so, I did my longest one, which was 49 days. And in total, I've spent more than 100 days since then in different retreats. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm so curious, Matthew, to know, what do you do in a dark retreat? You just sit down there and you're in total darkness. What goes through your mind? How do you deal with all the thoughts and emotions and feelings that come through?
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why it's dark retreat usually is a very advanced practice in spiritual traditions, and you're not supposed to do it unless you know how to meditate first, because things can go really wrong. And the reason is, once you go into the darkness, first of all, you're removing all distractions, right? Usually in life, there are so many feelings that we feel, we just distract ourselves from it. So I feel a little bit down or bad, I go eat a pizza or I eat a cake or I watch some Netflix or I call a friend. And when you remove that crutch, suddenly a lot of feelings start coming up, suddenly a lot of thoughts. All that stuff that we normally suppress, it all starts coming up. So that's one aspect of the dark retreat. The second is there's huge chemical shifts, hormonal shifts that happen when you're in darkness because you basically cannot see how many fingers you're holding. It's total darkness. So if you're holding your fingers in front of your eyes, you cannot see how many fingers. And the first 4, 5, 6 days, melatonin increases a lot. So you usually just sleep and rest a lot. And then around day 7, 8, 9, you have huge releases of DMT, which is the same psychoactive ingredient in ayahuasca or some plant medicines that people use in shamanic traditions. So once you get that hormone release, you really feel that. You basically start hallucinating and different dimensions start opening up for you. So if you aren't able to meditate and stay calm, it could be a really bad situation because you start seeing all sorts of visions in the darkness. And if you get swept up in fear, that's a big problem.
Wow.
So,
That's
so,
so deep.
so ideally, there are certain practices. Dark retreat in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition is used to do certain practices to gain certain types of realizations. When I went in, I dropped all practices on purpose. I didn't want to have any practices. I just wanted to feel my soul state. I wanted to feel, how do I actually feel when I'm not distracting myself? And what I discovered was I don't feel very good when I'm not distracting myself. There was all sorts of anger, all sorts of pain, all sorts of stuff that came up. And then what I kept coming back to again and again, Toby, was just my heart and trying to love these emotions, trying to forgive the pains that was coming up, trying to let go of certain difficult situations I had with my parents or family members or other people, business partners, etc. And one unique thing about Dark Retreat, and I recommend everyone to do this for that reason, just 1 day or 2 days, it's it's so special to feel yourself just by yourself with no one else's energy there. We don't realize in daily life how much the energy of our coworkers, how much the energy of our neighbors, how much the energy of our family, parents, friends are affecting us. So when you're in there, then you suddenly feel this quiet. You're like, it's just me here. And so in that sense, it's very powerful to reset yourself and just remember what's really important for me, Toby, or what's really important for me, Mateo, when all the noise and the influence of others isn't there.
Yeah. You get centered, I would say. You get to your core,
Yes,
to your core of the
absolutely.
soul. Yeah. And like after you completed all of these practices, are there like some things that changed in your life, like on your business also? Are there like some things that you had to let go of or some new habit that you had to cultivate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the whole path of spirituality, how I would put it, is a path of letting go. It's
Mm,
That's all it is. It's not really a path of getting stuff. They classically there's this classical story where someone goes up to the Buddha and they ask him, "So you meditated all these years, you did all these crazy practices, and you sat under the Bodhi tree for 7 years, and you're supposed to be enlightened. What did you get from all this?" And he says, "I didn't get anything. But I'll tell you what I've lost. I've lost anger. I've lost depression. I've lost hatred. I've lost worrying." So the whole path is letting go. And there was so much letting go. And as a result, I came slowly more and more back to what we could call, maybe in some traditions, they call it the natural state. And the natural state of all human beings is peace, is kindness, is compassion, is authenticity. And of course, we are all unique, so we express it in different ways. It's that childlike wonder, that childlike purity and innocence. So the main thing was just slowly reconnecting with that because I had lost that, in my material pursuits and the traumas and the difficulties of life. I had lost connection with that. I was a very angry young man. I was had a lot of hurt, a lot of fear. So I started connecting with that natural state within, that compassion, that purity, which is, priceless to me. There is really nothing more valuable than that. We can gain the whole world, but if we lose ourselves, what is the point? And then as a result, I also slowly started thinking of others. Once I could see my own pain more clearly and I could love it, I started having more natural compassion. I understood, oh my God, this is not just me. We are like one humanity and we all know suffering, whether we're from Africa or Asia or Europe or America. We all actually know what suffering feels like. We all want to be happy. We all want to be together with our loved ones. That's a shared experience. And if I can help others also learn some of the things that I've learned, it's a great blessing.
And that's why I think that's one of the reasons why you're on this episode right now, because I really want to learn from that. And you touched a point I want to talk about already. Like, you've been in that place of isolation, in darkness. You come in contact with everything that you've gone through and you have to learn how to let go of them. And a lot of listeners out there, a lot of people out there are suffering from their childhood traumas, from emotional traumas. So, Matthew, I would just like to know, like, from everything you've experienced so far in life, are there like some things that you could share with people out there that could help them to free themselves from all these traumas?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. I think, honestly, Toby, it's a global question, that we as a humanity need to solve because when you look at all the wars that are happening and stuff, it basically comes down to trauma. It basically comes down not being able to regulate my emotions, so I kill a bunch of people. So
Mm,
it's really something we need to figure out as a culture. There are so many methods, there are so many modalities that are coming, but I would say having a nice support system is very important. If you can have good friends, positive friends who got your back, who you can trust, or family members, or if you don't have that, some of us are not so lucky. Maybe we're born in families that were not supportive, or we had friends that betrayed us, or try to find communities, whether it's your local church or whether it's you like playing football and you find a good group of friends. It doesn't have to be spiritual, but if you can find a base of support together with other human beings, I think that's a major advantage. That's a major foundation because healing is very difficult if you don't have the basics down. Um, then if you have time, I would suggest trying to find some kind of meditative practice. Now, that can be sitting down and meditating according to a Buddhist path. It can be gospel singing in your church, if that's your thing. It can be going for a run. It can be art or playing music or moving, dancing, whatever brings you back to center, as you said, whatever just connects you with that wisdom, because we all have that wisdom deep within our soul. So whatever brings you back to that wisdom, that's the real guru. That's the real teacher, is that wisdom. It always knows what to do. It knows what is right for us. So any practice that can help you come back to that is super, super helpful. If you don't yet have access to that inner core of your soul or your wisdom or your divinity, whatever you want to call it, then start by just removing the things that are toxic for you. So instead of focusing on what is good, just find one or two things and say, this really is not serving me. Maybe you have a drug addiction. Maybe it's alcohol. Maybe it's bad friends or a bad environment. See if you can slowly start removing those things that are clearly not good for you. When you remove those things, you have more space for the light to shine. So there are many, many paths, but the simple method is this. This is the simple framework.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. Like, once you start removing all of the blockages, then more light shines into your life.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something I'm taking away from this conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, it really helps a lot. And I was just having like a picture in my head right now when you were talking about the isolation. I'm just going back to that
Sure.
again because I find that very fascinating. Like, once you're able to block out all the distractions and you're able to connect with your soul and remove all the of course, the distractions, and remove all the blockages that is blocking you from your true core, from your soul core, for example, I guess you start to see maybe there's a little bit of light that you've blocked away for a long time, and once you're able to let that light shine, then it chases away every shadow or every demon that could be affecting you basically in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's this saying, if you have a dark room and you turn on the light, right, you don't have to chase out the dark. Just you turning on the light, there is no dark anymore, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
it's actually a very funny thing to go into darkness where there is no light and to find the light. It's
Mm,
actually a kind of ironic thing. But yeah,
yeah.
once I was in that isolation, certainly I've had many, many experiences, some that I don't talk about and some that I talk about, um, both in dark retreats and later, that have completely changed my view of what this reality is, and
Mm,
what is possible. And it's not that I walk around now, I have all these great answers. I have
mm,
few answers, but more than anything, I've seen that I have very little answers about what this is. This is a real mystery, this life thing. But what I do
mm,
know is that love and peace and kindness feel good. And it
yeah.
helps me and it helps other people around me when I can come from there. It's a kind of universal language.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, if everyone can come from a place of love and do everything from a place of love, then this world would be a totally different place entirely, and to be a safer place for us to be in altogether.
Hmm.
Yeah. I really love that. So for someone out there, for example, who has listened so far and is asking is herself, okay, what's one thing I could do right now in order to, be awakened spiritually?
Yeah.
Would you say it's starting with a meditation practice, or, like you said earlier, joining a gospel choir in church, for example,
Yeah.
or taking art classes or joining art classes or dancing or something?
Yeah, I would say those are the practical steps that one can take, and that helps a lot. I did that myself when I had a very, very stubborn, rigid, skeptical ego. I
Mm,
started taking these practical steps, which slowly, the practical steps like going to church or meditation or whatever, are just softening your ego, right? Because what
mm,
we
mm,
what we really are is not the ego or the mind. And that can sound strange if we really believe we're the ego or the mind. What I'm about to say now can sound strange, but we're not really the ego or the mind. We are something quite undefinable, which some of its qualities are peace, some of its quality are light, some of its quality are love. And it has been called many things in many different traditions, from Christianity to spiritual, like Buddhist traditions, Hindu traditions, shamanic traditions. They all have different names for it. But fundamentally, we're pointing to the same thing that we all have within
mm,
us. And we all love feeling that in another human being. We all love feeling that in ourselves. That's what we really are. So, in order to awaken spiritually, you actually don't need to do anything. You are already that. The problem is that the sun is already shining with its full force. The problem is there are clouds covering it, right?
mm,
So going to meditation or to gospel singing or dancing is just a way to remove some of these clouds. Actually, all along and later in your practice or in your spiritual awakening, you're realizing, oh my God, all along I was the sun shining, and I had this idea I'm the clouds, and how will I get back to the sun?
mm.
So the whole thing is
Yeah.
quite humorous to you, but of course it's not funny when we're suffering, when we believe we're the mind, the thoughts, the ego. So
Mm,
all you really got to do is really want it in your heart. If you really want to awaken spiritually, boy, you're
mm,
going to awaken. But also, you got to keep in mind that uh, in spiritual awakening, all those clouds are going to come up. Once you start awakening, you're going to see all those clouds that have been covering over the sun, and you got to deal with it.
mm.
It's not always
Yeah.
easy.
I can imagine that. Yeah. I mean, we have to be ready to face every
Yes,
every ugly thing possible.
yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I believe by the time we are constant on that journey, and we are able to face all the demons, all the darkness, all the clouds, like you said, we'll rise above that level, that horizon, and just have the sun basically once we get above the cloud.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there are these sayings. in the beginning, it is like that, like we're rising above the clouds. And later, you also realize that the clouds are also part of the sky, the freedom of the
Mm,
sky. The waves, no
mm,
matter how demonic or dark they seem, are also part of the ocean. So you start seeing that even the worst sides of you um, are coming out of the potential of the sun
mm,
or the potential of the sky. So actually there is nothing to fear. There is nothing, it's all your own mind. It's all just expressions of the same truth. And
mm,
and that's when you really start gaining a deep fearlessness. There's a
mm,
famous yogi, Yesha Sogyal, this female yogi who lived over 1,000 years ago, I believe. She said, "I see nothing to fear in inner space." Right? So she's talking about, she saw that everything that arises, even the angriest thought, the most loving thought, where is it
mm.
arising? It's arising in my own mind. It's waves in the ocean. So why should I fear
Yeah.
it?
Mm, true. Right. Yeah. You're the master of all the ways. You are the
Yes.
creator, basically, and
Yes.
you can decide to calm it off if you want
That's
to.
it. That's it.
Yeah. I believe the same applies to limiting beliefs also, because I think it comes from within. It comes from what we've experienced in the past, and or what life has dealt us with before. And once we're able to, like you said, understand that it comes from within, and you are capable, you have the power to let go of it or to face it,
Yes.
and then work on it and let it go, then you'll be free from it also.
Yes. And a really good question when working with limiting beliefs is simply ask yourself, how is this limiting belief trying to help me?
Mm,
Because everything within has a kind of intelligence. So even like the deepest hatred or the most destructive violence emotions that we have, if we really check with it, we see that it's actually somehow trying to help. Now, of course, if we act out that feeling, it's not going to help. It's going to be destructive. But maybe hatred or even wanting to hit someone or be violent, you check and it says, "Oh, I want to protect the vulnerable side of you." And once you
mm,
start seeing the deeper intention, oh my God, even this limiting belief or this painful emotion is trying to help me, it can soften them. You don't need this fight with it. You're like, oh, okay. Well, there are better ways maybe I can help myself. Maybe I can protect myself by just leaving. I don't have to fight with this person. I can just leave, as an example.
mm,
So if you can, try not to have this fight, I would say to the listeners, against yourself. Try to see even the limiting belief, even this thing you hated and you're so convinced it's stopping you, it has a good intention somewhere.
mm. Yeah. There's always something positive. There's a bright side to
Yes,
different things that we face in life.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Matthew, I'm curious to know, like, you're also a professional, a psychologist, an engineer. You write books too, which are in a spiritual way, form. How do you balance it all? How do you balance your spiritual life with I won't say the real world, but professional life also?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Um, Well, in the beginning, there was a lot of balance, trying to balance it over the years. Like I went for a lot of extremes. So
Mm,
I was like living on a mountain. I was doing this crazy solitude, dark retreats. And then after that, after like 6, 7 years of really intense spiritual practice,
mm,
my heart told me now it's time to integrate it at all. So I moved to Dubai, which is a very materialistic place back then because I
mm,
felt I needed the different kind of energy. Actually, I need to immerse
mm,
myself in the world of business. And that helped me a lot, just feeling that very different kind of energy. So I went to the other extreme for a few years of, working a lot on business and getting back into that again. But these days, I would say, I don't even view a difference anymore. Spirituality and materiality ultimately are two concepts. Of course, we have to go through a journey often to realize that.
mm,
Um, I think the whole journey of life is about learning how to live a good life,
mm.
and it's just very simple things that helps us live a good life. Common sense, have peace, be kind.
Yeah.
But those things are
Yeah.
not always easy because we get swept up in this crazy world. The world we live in, the kind of conditionings in this world are really crazy. We've normalized some very unnormal things like We're separate from our family members, from our friends. We have to work so many hours each day, and there's not very little time for introspection or meditation or resting or walks in nature. So I think the balance comes from within. The more you connect with yourself, the more you're going to start feeling this natural balance. And then the challenge is, how do I live that natural balance in a world that mostly doesn't honor a balance like that, in a world that's more just driven towards material success, right? The
Yeah.
humanity doesn't
Yes.
care so much. The emotions doesn't care. Just push through and be successful or whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the challenge. And I feel that technology, the technological evolutions that are happening, actually can be a help in that. They can be a block, but they can also be a help. It seems like um, we're moving more and more towards people getting equal chances all over the world. People are starting to get access to internet. I know a lot of people from third world countries now doing freelance work, or they've started their own companies. And I think that's a great evolution where people start having more and more freedom to hopefully carve their own way, in this life.
Yeah, that's true. And I believe, like you said already, we live in a very materialistic world. Maybe not as much as in Dubai, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think in general. Yeah, but I believe that that sometimes causes a lot of conflicts. If you're trying to come from a place of love,
Yes.
a place of being centered, the world we face you with a lot of no, no, no. How do you get the next million? Would you have to kill? Would you have to walk over? Would you have to step over?
Yeah.
You understand? To make the next to hit the next goal, basically. And I think it takes a lot of consistency, intentionality, also to be able to just stay true to oneself, stay true to one's spirituality, and integrate that into one's personal life and also one's professional life too. Yeah.
Yes, and it takes courage, man. It really takes courage because ultimately, you know, um, we don't have to do much, right? There are examples of this in India. There are people who just choose to be yogis, and
Mm,
they're just getting begging a little bit, or they're living very simple, and they're just spending their whole time meditating and whatever. So of course, we're all not equal in terms of the opportunities we get born into. There is still unfairness and inequality and struggles, different places in the world. But I think a lot of the pressures are also pressures we put on ourselves. It's not just that society is materialistic, it's that I buy into the hype. And I believe
mm,
that if I don't succeed in this framework, then what are my friends going to think? What will my family think? Then I'm behind. So I have to push. And so we also buy into this framework somehow.
mm,
And so
mm,
it takes enormous courage to start questioning. And, it's not bad for everybody. Some people are really happy with that. But at least to have the courage to ask, is this really making me happy? Do I want to live like 10, 20, 30, 40 years more like this? Those kind of questions, all the spiritual awakening journey takes, Toby, is courage and willingness to really look at your life and to be honest. You know,
mm. Yes, true. Yeah, we have to be honest with
yeah.
ourselves. Yeah, is this what I truly want? Is this who I am? Have I lost myself in the journey of chasing the next big thing in
Yes.
life?
And of course, the
Yeah.
answer is often yes, we have lost ourselves, right? This is the nature. This is the nature of, in Indian traditions, they call it the Maya, the great illusion or the great play, depending on how you translate it. In Buddhism, they call it
Mm,
samsara. It has like a sucking power, right?
mm.
There's this great
Yeah.
story. I don't know if you've heard it. There is this great philosopher who has studied spirituality and meditation and thought about all these big questions of life. And even though he's studied this for decades, he still feels a little bit in his heart at night. He feels, I don't really have peace. I only know this like a book knowledge. But
Mm,
all this peace, all this love I read about, I don't really know it. And so finally, he gets this chance to go and speak with this real master who has attained peace.
mm,
And he travels for
mm,
months. There's no transportation back then. He travels for months and he finally gets to this master. And he gets to the master and he says, Oh, master, I have just one question. What is the nature of losing yourself in the world? I still don't get it. And the master says, that's a beautiful question. But before I answer that, and the master puts his arm right here on the shoulder, and he says, before I answer that, go get us 2 cups of tea, and I'll answer your question. And the man says, okay. And he walks there is 10 minutes walk down from this mountain down to the village. And he goes down there to get the tea. He's very excited. I'm going to get the answer to this amazing question. And on the way down, he sees this beautiful woman, right, who is working in the fields. And he just completely loses himself and says, who's that? And he goes up to her and he says, excuse me, do you have some water and some tea? I'm going to go back. And she looks at him and he completely falls in love with her. And the next thing he knows, he sees her father and he says, I'm so in love with your daughter. Can I marry her? And the father says, yeah, but if you want to marry her, you got to work. You got to make a living. You can't just, you need to support her. So he stays in the village and he learns the craft of farming, and eventually he marries her and he's so happy, and they have 2 children and he has everything, right? He's living his best life. And one day it starts raining and the rain gets more and more intense and it keeps going and it keeps going, and a flood comes and it floods his entire farm, and everything he worked for gets flooded, and the flood gets higher and higher and higher. And he finally goes with his wife and his 2 kids on the roof of their building, of their house. And the flood comes and it takes all of them. And the last thing he notices is he tries to grab for his children, but they're gone. And once everything is over, he wakes up from he had gone unconscious. He wakes up and he sees there his dead wife and his 2 children. And he just starts crying and sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And he knows he's lost everything. And in that moment, he feels someone put his arm right on his shoulder. And he opens his eyes and looks up, and he's still up there with the master. And the master says, that's the nature of losing yourself. So, it's very convincing, these stories we tell ourselves about what's really important in life and the conditionings we believe in. They can be very, very, very convincing. So it's not that it's bad to have a business or a family or anything, but it's very good to really question, because it's so easy to get swept up.
That's very true. Yeah. Wow, thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, that's a very vital lesson. I'd like us to, before we wrap this up, I'd like us to talk briefly about your book, The Awareness Method. And I'd just like you to share some of these methods, because if we are not aware of everything around us about our spiritual life, we won't be able to, forge ahead in life and also even get to know who we truly are. And we have to be aware of ourselves, aware of who we are, aware of our society, our surrounding, and how to become successful. And that's why I would like you to talk about the methods that we could use to become much more aware in life.
Yeah. So the Awareness Method is my 3rd book, and it's really a combination of everything I've worked on. It combines, let's say, the East and the West, and there are 3 steps to it, put simply. The first step is to create awareness, because as you beautifully said, Tobi, that is the most important thing. We can't change what we're not aware of. So once we create awareness in the correct way, there is instant freedom that happens. We don't have to wait for the freedom for 10 years. Once you have true awareness, there is a freedom that opens up. Okay? The second step is we don't want to just stay in that freedom. We want to use that freedom to make the subconscious conscious. So from that place of awareness or presence or mindfulness, we use certain methods in the Awareness Method to see our limiting beliefs, our stuck emotions, our traumas, and help them free, help them liberate. Because as long as we believe in all that, it's very hard to show up powerfully in this world and to share our real talents and love with others. So step 2 is we make the subconscious conscious. That gives us even more awareness, and it gives us more freedom to express. And then the final step, which is very important and powerful method for everyone, if you don't even follow the 2 first methods, just follow this 3rd step, which is follow your heart. So basically, the heart has this inbuilt kind of blueprint or plan, divine master plan, or for your purpose and what you're here to do. So you start following your heart. We don't want to just be free. We don't want to just integrate all this power and love. we want to then use that love, that power, that freedom to follow our heart and be a servant. So our body, our ego, and our mind can become a servant for that higher grace, for that, for God or divinity or universe, whatever you choose to call it. And once we follow our heart, that's when we come really into alignment and we can share those unique gifts that each and every one of us has in the most efficient way possible. And it's been my experience that when we do that, abundance naturally flows. And I don't just mean money, but I mean abundance in all ways and to the degree that is right for us. So everyone won't become a billionaire. That's not the point. But everyone will have just enough for what it is they need and what their soul wants to learn on this journey. So those are the three steps of the awareness.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I mean this is a very vital point, especially the heart, taking care of the heart, and coming from the place of the heart. Also, I encourage everyone out there to get the book. The link to your website for the book also will be in the show notes of this episode. So I encourage everyone to just click on the link and even read more about it. There's a lot of description about the book there for people to check out.
Yep.
For people out there who still have to ask more questions, who still wants to get across to you, Mateo, maybe to work with you better, to maybe ask some follow-up questions that we could not cover in this conversation, what's the best way to work with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, just get in touch with me on arianmateo.com. You can find my contact there. You can also get in touch with me on IG. I am Arian Mateo.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The link to your website will be in the show notes of the episode one more time. I encourage everyone to just click on it, copy it, and get across to you. I really learned so much from you, from the stories, and I learned so much about, how to gain liberation. I asked so much questions about the isolation period and how, one could profit from that. And I learned so much from the benefits that comes with meditation also. Thank you so much, Mateo. This was wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Toby.
Wow, you made it to the very end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful for your time, your love, and your contributions. Subscribe, like, review, and share this podcast. God bless you. Bye.